just all the black. But again, when the tangent, the way it works is it's always the y value over the x value, and so somehow you have to do that work. Whether you can shorten it a little bit or not, it's still not much easier just to be able to look up those values. And it is a nice pattern as well. So tangent ranges from the square root of 3 over 3 to 1, the square root of 3 to undefined, and it's also 0 in some spots. Okay, and then depending on whether you're dividing positive with a negative, so all these over here, since it's y over x, a positive divided by negative is a negative. Okay, so all these values are negative for tangent. Then over here, it's a negative divided by a negative, which makes it positive. So back to positive square root of 3 over 3, then 1, then square root of 3. This one's also undefined because it's y over x, so it's negative 1 divided by 0. So again, we can't have 0 in the denominator. So there's two spots where tangent is undefined, right up here and down here. 90 degrees and pi over 2, and 270 and 3 pi over 2. So if you're ever asked to find those values, you would just say undefined. And then it's going back to being negative over here because it's a negative divided by a positive. But again, it's still negative square root of 3, negative 1, negative square root of 3 over 3. And then this one's 0 because we take 0 divided by 1, 0 divided by anything as well. So kind of rushed that at the end of yesterday. So now what we're going to focus on today is how we're going to use this handout that I made to fill out with all these colors. So mine's a little worse for wear, but I made this back in like 2015, I think, and I've kept it around. So these, there's a couple different uses we're going to use for it, but right now we're just going to get used to what all these values mean for us. So what I'm going to give you is I'm going to give you one of the 6 trig functions. So I'll give you sine, cosine, tangent, secant, cosecant, or cotangent, and then a specific angle. And then you use the chart. So you go to your angle, and then you just have to remember which value goes with what. So again, the x value is all your cosine values, and then the reciprocal of those would be your secants. The y values are all the sine values, which the reciprocal of that will be your cosecant. So you'll have to do some fixes, because if you have to do the reciprocal of something with the square root will then be on the bottom. We can't have squares on the bottom no matter what. So sometimes we have to do the reciprocals. There will be some fixes and simplifications that you can do. And then tangent are all these outside values is what I'll call them, because we have x, y, and outside is the 3 words I use to describe where to find the values. So these are all your tangent. And then again, since we have tangent, its reciprocal is cotangent. So we can find all 6 trig values from a specific angle using this chart. Okay, so we're going to go to the blue packet now. So everyone got all the tangent written down? So like I said, we're still finding exact values, only instead of having to do all the work with all the different triangles and circles and all that, all you have to do to find exact values now is I have to give you some trig function and an angle, and we can look it up using our unit circle handout. Okay, so with that first one, we're going to have sine, and then I can either give you an angle in radian format or degree format. So these are radians, and then some of these are degrees. I try to err a little bit more to radians because those are a little bit more new, so you're not quite as used to looking at angles in radian format versus degree format. But again, we can look all these up just using our charts. So we're looking at that first one, so sine, and I have a scanned-in version of this paper. So sine is all your y values, so that's what I have to write in the key code. So sine are all these, my color is red, so they're all those sine values. So it's going to be one of those values that we look up. And so we're going to specifically look for 7 pi over 6. So we're going to go around our circle and try to find 7 pi over 6. There's pi over 6. There's 5 pi over 6. Here's 7 pi over 6. Okay? So then we want the sine value at that angle. So I'm going to go to my chart. So the sine value at that angle is negative half. So my answer is negative half.
That's all you have to do?
Yep.
Oh.
So it's finding exact values are a lot simplified once you know and how to read this chart. Does that make sense on the first one? Okay, so now we're going to the second one. So we're going to do cosine, so I can tell you the trig, and then I tell you the angle we're looking for. So pi over 3 is right up here, and we're looking for cosine. So is cosine x, y, or the outside? X. So I'm going to look for, here's my pi over 3. So the point right next to it is here. So the x value is a half. So my answer for number 2 is a half. That makes sense. So then we're going to do cosecant of 4 pi over 3. So this one's not a direct value that's on here, but it is related. It's one of the reciprocals. So first one I'm going to do is find 4 pi over 3. Pi over 3 to pi over 3. 4 pi over 3 is right down here. Okay. So then it's cosecant. What is cosecant the reciprocal of? Sine. Yep. So sine is that x, y, or r, or outside? Y. Yep. So the sine value is the y value. Okay. So the sine value is negative square root of 3 over 2. But I'm not looking specifically for sine. I'm looking for cosecant. So cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. So the cosecant value is the reciprocal of that sine value. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of work with this one. So the cosecant is going to be the reciprocal of that sine value that I had on my chart. Okay? So cosecant was the reciprocal of sine. Sine was y. The sine value for y was square root of 3 over 2. So its reciprocal is just flip it. So just like any time we did any thing with fractions, we just have to flip it. But do we like square roots on the bottom? No, we do not. So we still need to fix that. So sometimes you do need to do a little bit of work. So this one will change to, and you just put the negative out in front. So it's 2 square root of 3 over 3 for cosecant of 4 pi over 3. Does that make sense? So now tangent of 270. We go to our chart. Okay, 270 is down here. So there's our degree, 270. Is tangent x, y, or the outside? Outside. So tangent is undefined. Now you don't have to write the ratio. I just kept that there because sometimes it's helpful when you have to do the reciprocal to remember that it does come from negative 1 over 0. But the tangent there is undefined, so I'm just going to write the word undefined. And I do want you to use that word. I don't really want you to use the no solution because it's not undefined and no solution are similar, but undefined is just meaning that there's a value there. It can't divide by 0. Okay. Is everything making sense so far?
On the one before that, when it's negative, square root negative, it wouldn't be negative on the top.
Yeah. I just put the negative kind of out.
Oh.
Just keep
I
it. So you can put it anywhere. So you can put it at the top. You can actually put it on the bottom. I just kind of stick it out in front, so I just remember to keep it negative. Okay. Let's do these next two real quick. So pi over 2. So we go to our charts. So pi over 2 is up here. Okay. And we're looking for cotangent. Where are we going to find cotangent? What's it the reciprocal of? Tangent. Okay. So tangent is that x, y, or the outside? Outside.
Yeah.
Okay, so here tangent is undefined. Okay. What's the reciprocal of undefined? 0. Yep. So that's why I left this here to kind of help you with the reciprocal part. So really, tangent here is really 1 over 0, but we can't have over 0, so we call it undefined. So the cotangent is the reciprocal of that, so it's 0 over 1, or just 0. So that's one new thing that we really haven't done much with. We've done stuff with reciprocals. We've talked a little bit about undefined, but we really have never done the reciprocal of undefined. So what you have to remember is that if something's undefined, its reciprocal is 0, and then if something is 0, its reciprocal is undefined. Yep. So those things go back and forth between each other. So if something's undefined, its reciprocal is 0. So if something's 0, its reciprocal is undefined. Okay? So those two things go back and forth. Does that make sense?
I have a question.
Yep.
Is there any reason that the bottom two have parentheses and the other ones don't, or does it not?
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Sometimes
I
I,
just double check.
yeah. Sometimes they're typed with parentheses, sometimes they're not. Sometimes I do. It really makes no difference.
Okay.
Actually, I don't know why I did that.
I know. I was just like, there's gotta be something
Yeah.
because they're not all like that.
Alright, so here we're gonna do this last one, and then there's one other kind of extension of this because these are all nice. These are all 6 of these I can find somewhere nicely on this chart. But what happens if there's an angle that's not on here directly? Then there's actually ways we can fix it so we can actually find the value that's on here. But let's do this last example real quick. So 90 degrees is up here. Secant is the reciprocal of which one? Cosine. Yep. So cosine. Here, cosine is it the x, y, or the outside?
X.
Yep, it's the x value. So here's cosine is 0. So then what's the reciprocal of 0? Undefined. Yep. So that's kind of why I did these last two. So this one it's technically 1/0, but if you ever have something that's 0 and you need to do the reciprocal of it, the reciprocal of 0 is undefined. The reciprocal of undefined is 0. Okay. Makes sense. Okay. So like I said, we just have a few more examples to go through because those are all nice, neat on the circle. What happens if there's not one that's on the circle? Well, we have to use some of the coterminal angle thinking that we did. Because if you get something that's not on here that's larger than a number than 360 or 2 pi, we can subtract 360 or 2 pi to get the angle that's currently on the circle. Or if we get something that's negative, we can add 360 or 2 pi to get it so that we find an angle on this circle. Because negative 300 is not the same thing as positive 300. Because what negative 300 is indicating is it's a clockwise rotation instead of a counterclockwise rotation like all of these circles are. So we can either, like I said, we're kind of using that same idea we did with coterminal angles, using a whole rotation. So if something's in degrees, we can either add or subtract 360 to that angle so that we can find the location using one of these angles that are on my chart. Does that make sense? Yep, so we're trying to find sine of negative 300. Like I said, negative 300 is not on here because negative angles and positive angles are not the same. It's a different rotation. But what we can do is take that negative angle and get it to something that's on here. So if something's negative, to get it something on here, because all these numbers are between 0 and 360, so we want something that's positive. So if we want to make it positive, we can add a rotation to get the angle that it correlates, or the coterminal angle that's on here. So really, we're finding the sine of, what's negative 300 plus 360? 60. Yep. So really what we're finding is the sine of 60. So then we go to our chart. So 60 degrees is here. And then, which value is our sine value? The y. Yep, so it's going to be the square root of 3 over something. That makes sense? So we're just getting used to reading the chart. So all we need is a trig value and some angle, and the angle really needs to be on here in order for this to work. Okay, so we got 2 more that we're going to do, and then we'll have a worksheet, and it's just over these things where I give you a trig value, an angle, and you have to find the angle and the value from the chart. Okay, so 9 pi over 4. I've got pi over 4, I've got 3 pi over 4, I've got 5 pi over 4, and I've got 7 pi over 4. Okay, so that's bigger than any one of my angles in radians that are over 4. So I need to get something that's on here. So since that's too big of an angle, do I need to add or subtract to get something? So you need to subtract. Yep. So it's in radians. We're going to keep it in radians. So what's a whole rotation in radians?
2.
2 pi. Yep. So just like we did with coterminal angles, so we're going to subtract 2 pi over 1. So we'll need to make a common denominator. So we're going to subtract that. So then really what we're looking for, yep, so really we're finding the cosine cosine of pi over 4. Okay. So pi over 4 is here. Which value is my cosine value? X, so it's going to be the square root of 2 over 2. So there's that one. Alright. So, like I said yesterday, when you find angles like this, there's only one angle on here in radians that's a double digit, and that's 11 pi over 6, and that's clearly not 11 pi over 6. So that means that angle is too big, so we need to get something that's on this circle, okay? So how can I take the 29 pi over 6 and get it to an angle that's on here? Am I going to add or subtract? Subtract. Yep, and so then I subtract the rotation. So I need to make a common denominator. What's my denominator going to be? 6. Okay. I'm going to start doing this so I don't rewrite it. Okay.
Do it twice.
Yep. So when I subtract that, what's 29 minus 12? 17. 17 on here. Again, that's double digit. The only double digit's 11. So I need to do it again. Sometimes you have a really, really big angle, so you might have to add or subtract more than once. We're just going to take that 17 pi over 6, and we're going to subtract 12 pi over 6 one more time. So it's 17 minus 12. That looks more like something that's going to be on there. So really, we're going to find tangent of 5 pi over 6. 5 pi over 6 is over here. And then what value is the tangent?
Negative 3 over 3.
Yep, negative square root 3 over 3. Questions? Oh. And for the most part, these are going to be jumbled up. You'll have some that are nice, ready for you to go, looking to look up, and there'll be some that are given to you as either negative angles, where you have to add to get it so it's positive, or it's too big positive, so you're going to have to subtract to get it something on that chart. So we're going to have a worksheet now. And like I said, it's just getting used to reading the chart. So it's all kinds of angles, all kinds of trig values that you have to look up. So that's with here, there, and there. So I gave you a bunch. Get used to it. Okay.
Yeah, that's why you gave us a bunch.
Yeah.
To get used to it.
Yep.
I pity the students who aren't here today and will have 2 worksheets by tomorrow.
Oh, I already have 2.
I don't. It's fine.
Yeah.
Can I go to the bathroom real quick?
Alright, so we're going to get that, and then we'll work on this.
I'm so ready for this week.